Dun, 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 dun. Kilted balls. I pretty much did not hear you at all.
Oh, man. Hopefully it came through.
This is one of my new drinks. I'm kind of liking it, and I was definitely in the mood today.
What is it?
So, I took a Modelo and put in about 2 or 3 fingers worth of my Bloody Mary mix, my spicy Bloody Mary mix.
Mm-hmm.
And then a Modelo. So kind of, you know how people put like tomato juice in their beers? I think people call it like a red beer.
Yeah.
Or a Clemento in their beer. I was in the mood, and so I made one of these, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and was like, oh, I like that. And so that's what I'm having. Yeah.
Go. I ate Taco Bell. I'm a fan.
You ate Taco Bell like at the restaurant?
Yeah. Have you had the new sauce?
What's the new one?
The new one, it was so hot it made my pee hole hurt.
The new sauce from Taco Bell was so hot that it made your pee hole hurt.
It's that hot. You have to try it.
I can honestly say I have never eaten anything that hot.
You have to try it.
Welcome,
listeners.
welcome back to the Kilted Balls podcast, where our pee holes hurt. Apparently, who knew? So for real though, does their new sauce have a name?
I can't remember.
You're like useless. Like, don't you feel like we should warn our listeners?
Fire sauce, maybe?
They already had a fire sauce. They had like mild,
really?
like fire. They had Diablo. They have green.
Oh, maybe it was Diablo. No, I think it was fire. Maybe I just hadn't had it before. I thought it was new.
Well, as a suggestion, maybe don't put it on your pee hole.
Yeah, you want to wash your hands before you try anything.
Always good advice. Speaking of washing your hands with that, I had this from another coach once. They always washed their hands before they went to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, nobody does that. They're like, it's the weirdest thing because your hands touch all sorts of dirty stuff and your junk actually is always clean. Like it never is going out anywhere. He's like, so why would you take dirty hands and touch your junk? He goes, that makes no sense to me. I'm like, that's a good point.
There's an old joke that does that. I think it's between the different armed forces, and in one of them they wash their hands first, and the other one they said that they just know not to pee on their hands, so they don't have to wash their hands afterward. I think they're picking on the Navy or something.
I mean, it makes sense. The Navy's kind of like. I mean, we have people who are from the Navy who listen to the podcast, so I don't really want to talk poorly about the seamen. Right?
Exactly.
That'd be rude. It'd be rude to talk about the seamen that way.
How was your weekend? Anything new and exciting?
So, I meant to do one of our YouTubes on this. I went to watch one of my daughters perform. She performs in the university marching band, right? And their days are so long and they're working so hard. That's not the point of the story. But I'm sitting there, like this is like during one of their practices, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got like the trumpets over here and they're practicing. And over here you got like clarinets. And over here you've got like alto saxes and trombones and percussion and mellophones. And they're all practicing whatever they need to practice, right? So it's like a cacophony of random ass shit all being played. Like it's just like loud, annoying marching band people playing. And they're all discordant and disjointed because they're all doing their own damn thing, right? Because they're practicing their stuff.
Yeah.
And then they come together And it's like freaking amazing. Huh?
They're practicing, they all come together?
Like practicing at the game, at whatever, right? Like they come back together and then they're like, okay, let's do this. And they all play and they all sound great and they're loud and they're amazing. And it's so interesting because I think, like, that's kind of why I want to talk about it. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do this justice, like, unless I recorded them. But it's like all of these separate entities, hearing them, like, all around you is just horrid on your ears and your well-being. But when they're all together, it's like this amazing experience, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think people forget sometimes that using a old Western Michigan thing from like 10 years ago, right? You got to row the boat. You got to row the boat together and good things happen. Like it's really hard if you're trying to row the boat and everybody's doing their own damn thing. But when you all go together, things work really, really well.
Yeah.
And like sometimes that means you've got to step back and be like, yeah, those people have to do what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You've got to like reel in the ego.
Yeah.
And when you're all working together towards something, like life is really, really good. So it just like, you know, I was just struck by it because I'm like listening to them and I'm like, this is so crazy because I know what they sound like together. But as individuals, they all sound atrocious. Right? Like, as individuals, they sounded good. It was the fact that they were all individuals at the same time, which sounded bad.
Yeah.
And then when they all... Right? And then they all go together and you're like, oh, that's amazing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that is such an allegory for so many different things. And it ties into so many things so well. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Sometimes you do have to take a step back.
Right. And that was just cool. And I was just like, and then I'm like watching football because, you know, it was marching band, so it was a football game. And I'm like, oh, same thing, right? If you're all working together, things are good. If one of you isn't, then bad things happen, right? And then I'm just like, it kept like going through over and over, you know, and I'm like, that's like, if we're all firing the same page, life is good. And that's kind of like the problem like with America right now, right? Everybody's doing their own damn thing. And like shit's falling through the cracks and it's falling apart. And like people think back and say, man, do you remember when we went to the moon? Like how good America was, which it wasn't all good. Like, don't get me wrong. It wasn't all good. But America had a goal, right? During the World Wars, not good. But America had a goal, and it was powerful because we were all going the same direction. Yeah. And as we're all separate, as we're all divisive, like that hurts us. And it's partially because of our ego, right? Like, I'm like, I know you're wrong. I'm not going to agree with you. And that means we're going opposite directions. And yay, America. That's my right. But it also brings us down because we're not all going in the same direction.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just a weird thing, right? Weird thing. Sorry, that was you asked about the weekend. Those were my thoughts on the weekend.
Well, that wasn't necessarily the most fun story. I have a hilarious story.
Please tell me, is it better than Taco Bell?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's been a while. So, there's a Costco bias.
Yes.
I used to have a Costco membership when my dog got sick, and you can get like cheaper medication there. But at that time, there was only one in like Southeast Charlotte, like really far. Like, you know, it was like 45 minutes to an hour away.
Sure.
So it wasn't really worth keeping, like, you know, just to get the food and things like that. It wasn't worth it.
Right.
But
for sure.
There's a new one by where we live, and Gina and I tried it out, and we're like, you know what, this is pretty cool. So we were there, and you know, the kids have fun because they're sampling stuff. Personally, I don't sample something unless I'm gonna buy it, and then I just want to make sure it's good. And then if it's not good, I won't buy it. Okay. So trying things in, I'm fairly new to this. I'm only a few years in of being a father, and you would probably like if you have any insight, this would be awesome. But sometimes they start acting wild, and you got to try to like wrangle people in and like, okay, settle down. And then it gets to the point where like, okay, well, you don't get to try this. So a lady was there with, the fall flavors cupcakes.
Sure.
And it's like, no, you don't. Like you don't get this. Like, even though it's gonna be good, and he like gets really upset, and he's like, I really wanted her cupcakes. So we're just laughing. And so what do you do in that situation? You break down and like, okay, well, if you're good, then you can then we can circle back around. So that's what we did. We ended up circling back around.
Were they good?
They were awesome. Yeah.
No, was the kids good?
Oh yeah, the kids are good. I mean, they're kids. So once they're not running around crazy, like that's really like good for like what you can expect in my book. So it was a fun experience. It's hilarious because like the cart fills up really, really fast. The things are much bigger there. So, but we had fun. The kids had fun eating all the stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think you asked a parenting question. I think it's tough, right? It's tough, right? It's your battles and what you want to do, right? But
yep.
I always am leery, personally. Not that I don't do stuff, but I'm leery when I say, "Hey, you're doing this. I'm not going to give you a treat or something," and then I'm like, "Okay, now you can have a treat," right? Because then I feel like I undermined my own stuff. Right?
Once they did the behavior, though.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because that was the punishment to begin with.
Okay, that
right?
makes sense.
Like I'm like, hey, you're screwing up. You're not gonna get that. Like, why would I get that to you? And then they do it, and I'm like, okay, so you don't get that. Like then, well, but I'm good now. Yeah, great. F you. Like that wasn't the deal. The deal was you be good then. Like I don't give two shits that you're good now. Now I'm gonna beat you because we're at freaking home. Like I wanted you to be good at Costco, right? Like you weren't. You were a little dick. That's your consequence for your actions. Actions have consequences, and it's hard. And sometimes you do stuff like that where you're like, where it's different, right? Like maybe they didn't understand that was about to be a punishment. Like, wait, I don't get shit when I'm a dick. Yeah, you don't get shit when you're a dick. So now, then you're like, okay, maybe you do get that if you're good, right? Like if you're good, I'm down with that. And like Cal and I have those discussions. I'll be like,
that makes a lot of sense.
I'll be like, no.
Rules beforehand.
Right. And they'll be like, what? And I'll be like, listen, I tell you what, if you're good, then that's something I can do. But that's the thing. And if you're not good, then no, we're not doing that, right? And again, like I have those talks with Cal, right? Because Cal's highly energetic, right? He's definitely my kid, so pure energy. And I'll be like, bro, like I'm going to take away all electronics. Like you're not going to have electronics.
Yeah.
But I want my electronics. I'm like, yeah, well, then straighten up or they're gone. And most of the time he doesn't straighten up and then they're gone. And he's like, and I'm like, okay, cool.
It does seem to be a thing that works.
What does?
Once the electronics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, Cal's always had, I shouldn't say always, but for a long time he's had like a phone. That he uses and plays with, and like one day he got it taken away. He was bad, no warning. So just to be clear, like I was like, yeah, that's wrong. Yeah, like I don't have to preface this. You've lost your phone, right? And just recently he was like, and it's been like a month. Like I don't care. Like you lost the phone, and he's like, I really wish I had my phone. I'm like, yeah, sucks to be you, I guess, right? Like you shouldn't have effed up. Right, you effed up. You effed around and found out, buddy. But like he was like, okay, I've done this. Is that good? And I'm like, maybe you need to do that like a few more times. And then like recently, he's like, okay, I think I'm getting better. I'm like, that's fair. You can have it back, right? Yeah. But understand, like, it can disappear again like that if you're being a punk. Like, don't do that. Yeah. Because I'm like, I don't like the phone. I think it makes you a bad human. So it's already on my list. I'll do it because I
Yeah.
love you. But
Oh, I
understand,
am.
if you give me any reason to take it, I'm going to use that reason, right? Because I think it's bad, right? Just like giving them
Yeah.
too much sugar.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Exactly.
bad. Like, a treat now and again is good. Drinking pop all the time is bad. So,
Yeah.
you know. But having your vegetables,
Yeah, that's all you. I'm not a vegetable
tomato
fan.
juice, woo!
Like your Bloody Marys too. I'm sticking with my water. So
My Bloody Marys. My Bloody Marys are good. Yeah. And I like this because it's tingly because of the bubbles, right?
oh yeah, that makes sense.
And I was super worried, right? Because, like, Modelo's kind of a Mexican beer, right? You know,
Yep.
I don't know if that's okay to say. Sorry, people, if it's not.
No,
But,
it is. It's
like,
Mexico.
right? And sometimes I get worried because I've had beers like that and they taste like a wet pussycat. And I'm like, I don't like that. Right? Like, they're like all skunky. And I'm like, that's no good. But you have this. And then you add the tomato. And I'm like, okay, it's fizzy. It's a little spicy. It's got a tang to it. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make me feel like I'm licking a skunk. Right? Like, I'm like, this is nice. This is nice.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's all good. And I had it when I was in California because it's more of a thing down there.
Okay.
You know, like Orange County, Southern California, they had it at supermarkets, and they, not this type, this is my own, right? But up here, they don't have it anywhere. Like, it's one of the few things that I can't find. And so then I tried it. I think I was camping Labor Day, and I was like, oh, I like it. I like it a lot. But I haven't had it since Labor Day.
Prepackaged.
Huh?
You can get it where it's already pre-mixed.
Yeah, so like when I was in California, my brother gave me like a Bud Light Clemento. It was like a Clemento Bud Light. I don't even know what it was called. I bet I could like Google it up, but it was like an actual like beer, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm like I just Googled it. Yeah, it's Bud Light. It's like Bud Light Clemento beer. It's at Walmart, right?
Okay.
But it's not in the Walmarts up here. Like there's a whole bunch of them here. 7-Eleven. And I'm like, I've looked so many places and it's not here.
Mm-hmm.
So now I just did it myself.
I would say it's probably better when you do it yourself anyways.
Well, and it's not really clam juice. Like Clemento's like a tomato-based clam juice. And this is Bloody Mary mix. But like it's almost too spicy when I make it into a Bloody Mary. And now it's like just right. So
Okay. So it's enough to offset it.
it is. And it doesn't taste nasty like some beers can taste, right?
And hopefully you don't get that wet fudge sickle later.
you don't want a wet fudge sickle. Like that'd be bad too.
Yep.
So I put this on Twitter. I don't know if like people noticed that I put this on Twitter, but I asked what we should talk about today. I'm jumping on the good old tweeter right now. Somebody on Twitter today was like, when do you think Elon's going to realize that it's always Twitter?
I can see that one.
Like it's not going to change the X. Like, when's he going to realize this? Oh, maybe I didn't put. I thought I put a post on the Twitter. Like it says, we're going to be recording tonight. Let us know if you things you want to hit on. Oh, I put it on YouTube, so I did a mini.
Did a YouTube short.
Yeah, I did a YouTube short. Somebody earlier was like, they're not called minis. I'm like, I'm calling them minis. I do what I want. So I did one, but I said, you know, maybe what we should talk about today is like being grumpy. Because here's my thing. It was just one of those weird days where things were making me grumpy.
Okay.
And I wasn't like, I didn't feel grumpy. Like I acknowledged the fact that things were happening that should make me grumpy. And I wasn't feeling grumpy. But what I realized is I was being short. Like, does that make sense? Like kids would say stuff or whatever, and I'd be like, "What? No, do this." You know, I'm like, boom, boom, boom. Like, and I'm like, ooh, it's because I'm having these grumpy things. I'm not really grumpy because I'm like, I love my life and I love everything that's going on and everything that I'm doing is good. But it was like one of those days where there was like thing after thing after thing after thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, these things should be making me grumpy. And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm being so short with people, because it's thing after thing. And that made me think, like, what do you, like, that's what I put in the, like, YouTube short was, what do you do when you're getting all these grumpy things? Do you just let yourself be grumpy? And, like, for me, I don't, like, I subconsciously just don't be grumpy. But then I'm like, it's actually being grumpy anyway. Like, I don't even recognize it until, like, afterwards.
Part of it really is showing how you've grown as a person, where you're not letting it grumpy compared to a younger self than you are now. Like, yes, short is not maybe ideally where you want to be, but still those things can, and almost like they're hitting you subconsciously, and you're not letting them bother you, but it's just breaking it down just a little bit. Like this morning here, it was, we woke up, there was no electricity, like, although he slept great. I don't know when it went out, but I woke up and everything was like pitch black. And I didn't think anything of it until like I walked out to take Banks out this morning and everything was dark. I was like, oh, we don't have electricity. But and then just, things are happening through the day. Same idea. I didn't, they weren't enough to where I would even consider like weighing me down. But just those things can add up and they can get to you.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's one of those things. And especially when there's outside sources like the kids, you're surrounded by kids. I just have a few, but they're, like you can be a little bit shorter with them when things like that are happening, or you're not sending out all your love that you could possibly be sending out.
Yes. That's kind of that better encapsulates it. You said it great. Like, normally I'm radiating my trying to radiate my joy and stuff. And all of a sudden now I was like, nope. Like I was sealed off. Like that's how I felt. Like I was sealed off because I was just like, nope.
So when you recognized it, did it go away?
No.
Or you just recognized that it was still kind of there? Okay.
I recognized it was like, oh yeah, all of these things should be making me grumpy. I'm feeling that, and I'm not like grumpy, but I'm not like happy. I'm not happy, and I'm just like, I'm going through my stuff because there was. Like, even tonight, like, I had meetings all the way until, like, we're recording a little later than normal because I was still at meetings. Yeah. And the meeting was great. It was fantastic. I loved it. I was happy the whole time I was at the meeting. I was exuding happiness. So it switched when I went to that meeting. But, like, I was in another meeting where I'm just sitting there. Then it wasn't, like, I probably would have been that way either way because it was, like, numbers and insurance, not really exciting stuff. Yeah. But I'm just like, and that was when I already knew that I was annoyed. So I was just like, yep, it's an annoying day, and I'm just going to sit here, get through this meeting before my next meeting.
Did part of it have been because you were up a little bit later last night, or no?
No. Like, I might have been, it's hard to say, like, I might have been a little tired, but in general, it takes a lot to get me tired. Though I was thinking this morning, I was like, man, I don't know if, we don't normally do that on a Monday. And I was like, great. That's like, it could be a late Monday, a late Tuesday, a late Wednesday, a late Thursday. And what happens for me is, like, I have a huge well of energy. Like, I often tell people, like, my energy's limitless. But that's false because 4 nights in a row of me staying up till, like, if I only get 5 hours of sleep, 4 nights in a row, that 5th night, I'm passing out. Like, so when we get to Friday... Like, if I sit down on Friday, I'm going to fall asleep. So if every night we do that, like, I become useless on Friday, right?
Yeah.
And as long as I don't sit down, I'm okay. But if I stop moving, and my kids have the same thing. Like, Amy will often talk about, like, Cal, like, when he gets tired, he starts, like, spinning like a top. Like, he's running everywhere. He's screaming. Mm-hmm. My daughter, Brenna, used to be the same way. She'd run around like crazy. And Amy's like, why do they do that? And I'm like, because they understand subconsciously what I understand consciously. If I stop moving once I'm tired, it's over. I'm done. They don't know that yet. They don't want the day to be over.
Yeah.
So they know as long as they keep moving, the day won't be over. I go, and so they're just going. I go, and if you can trap them and say, just sit for a second, it's done, and they'll pass out. I go, but you got to trap them and do it. And they don't know because it's subconscious, right? And like now Brenna's older, she recognizes it, and she'll just be like, I got to go take a nap, and she'll go sleep, right? Uh-huh. I know it, and I don't run around crazy. I just make sure I don't sit down. Like,
Yeah.
but if I do sit down, I'm like somebody will be like, "Hey, let's watch a show," and I'll be like, "Well, I guess if I'm ending the night,
Uh-huh.
right? Like, we're done. Good talking
That's
to you."
fun.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can only do that for so long. And I hear as we get older, like our metabolism slows down, we don't need as much sleep, right? So maybe that'll be a thing, but as you and I both know, our metabolisms are crazy. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it'll happen when we're 60, 70, when we're computers. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. When we finally turn into the AI.
Right. Then maybe it will. Maybe we won't be
Mm-hmm.
grumpy. I was like, is AI going to get grumpy?
Oh, that's true.
I've been thinking a lot
Actually,
about different things like that.
because I try not to have my coffee right away, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. At least an hour, but usually that's like I'm driving. When I'm driving the boys to school, I have my coffee when I'm driving in.
Yes.
And we because it was dark this morning and we were running around with flashlights, we actually left on time. So it's like, oh, okay, and we turned onto this one road, and we're like, and I said it was my own fault. And I said, hey, guys, we're going to be early today because we left on time, and you're going to be able to have breakfast. And I get over the hill, and there's a sea of stoplight or
Red lights.
stop lights. But, yeah, we ended up being late to school, but because there was so much traffic and so many people, anyone coming from the north was late because there was an accident at the intersection.
Mm-hmm.
So people turning left couldn't get it. It was just chaos. So it was like almost 3 hours before I had coffee this morning, and I was getting a little sleepy because we were up a little later than normal on a Monday.
Yeah. We were up a little later, which is not bad. Like we were probably still in bed by midnight, is my guess.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was 11:30 when I went to bed. So
I think about the fact that my parents always went to bed like at 11:30. Because they always watched the 11 o'clock news, and they always had like the Tonight Show on.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have really fond memories, like knowing that they were up. Like I'd get up, right, and they'd be sitting there watching shows, and they'd be like, "Get back to bed." I'd be like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So
because I imagine your dad would have to get up early.
yeah, he worked in Detroit, right? Like that was a haul.
Yeah.
So he must have been. Yeah, I don't know. My mom, maybe he was probably always sleeping, right? It was probably my mom. That's probably where I get the energy from, right? Like it's that side of the family. It's those genetics. Speaking of that side of the family and genetics, I found an old book at a book sale this last weekend. And I can't remember the title. Dang it. But it was something about like women and their sex or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like I didn't read it at all, saw it, cracked up, brought it home, gave it to my wife, and I'm like, just open it to any page because I'm sure it's gonna be amazing. Like it can't be bad. And she's like, oh, whatever. And so she like opens it up, and it's like the reasons why you shouldn't marry a woman and sometimes a man, right? And it was, she told me, I didn't read it, she said it was bulleted, and she's reading them to me, and like with a descriptor under each one why it was important. And they had some that were like, if anybody in her family has hemophilia, you should never marry her because she's a carrier and your sons will get hemophilia, so don't marry her. If she has an astigmatism, don't marry her. If she's frigid, don't marry her. And it like gave reasons. If she has a high libido, don't marry her. Gave all these reasons. If she has foul odors coming from her mouth, and it was like, don't take her to the altar. Make sure that is fixed before she goes to the altar. Don't marry her. Like it was from like 1917, so it was like pretty amazing. Awesome. Yeah, I was like, oh, like women have a long way to go, but man, have they come a long way.
Yeah.
I was like, this is an actual book that people had and followed. Like,
well, I don't remember the dates now. You probably remember better than I do. But when I had that human sexuality class in college, like there was a time where the clitoris was removed from the female anatomy. Like it didn't exist. It was in the books, and then it was gone from the books, and then it was put back in the books. like as a body part.
No way, I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So they took the clitoris out of the books.
It was not there. It wasn't a thing. You know.
Then it came back.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
You can
why?
Google that, friend. Safe mode.
Safe mode.
You don't want to rush.
Do an incognito browser. Use your VPN. And you can go ahead and Google when they lost the clitoris.
And when it came back.
And when the clitoris came back. I'm pretty sure if you said a Google search for when you lost the clitoris, that your phone's going to get a rash. Right? Or you're going to see some really interesting pictures.
Your news feed is going to change.
It's probably changed already if you're listening to this, and we've now said the word clitoris like 5 or 6 times. It's probably going to show up in your Google automatically in your news feed.
That's true.
They're listening. So, oh dear. Oh dear.
Yes.
That's a word you don't hear every day right there.
On that note.
on that note. Hi, Mom! I don't think Mom listens to the podcast. Maybe she does.
No? Yeah, maybe she does.
I think one of my siblings does every once in a while. So, maybe 2.
Okay.
Yeah. But they've heard me say that before. All right.
Yeah.
I had explained to my mom once what a fluffer was and all sorts of fun terms. So,
not fluffer nutter. That's different.
Fluffer nutter's totally different. Totally different. Yeah, we had a time once. We talked last week about your reunion, and you know, which had the same number of people as our Sunday dinners. And I remember once we were at like Thanksgiving or Christmas, and I'm sitting next to my mom, and we're like sitting there, and everybody's like doing their thing, and like it's loud as you've been a part of. And I look at her, I'm like, hey, you know what? And she's like, what? I'm like, look around this room. Look at every person. She's like, what? I'm like, every person in this room is here because of your vagina. Mm-hmm. she's like, that's true. And I'm like, it is for sure true. Like, that thing is powerful. She's like, nice. I'm like, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's awesome. One person can do that much stuff.
At the next opinion.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah.
But you are right. On that note, we've pushed past 30 minutes. It's been a good episode for us.
Great episode.
We appreciate you hanging out. We hope you've been looking at some of our YouTube shorts. We hope you've been on our Twitter. Join us on Discord. If you don't have a link to our Discord, shoot us a comment. Shoot us a tweet. Find us on Facebook, TikTok, whatever. And say, hey, I want to be part of your Discord. We have lots of channels in our Discord. We chat a lot on our Discord about random shit and sometimes really specific stuff. But you can get on there and you can join us. It's a good time. I like it.
Yep.
This last week we had a random post about baseball. Like, who the hell does that? I don't know. Somebody did.
That does.
Somebody did. Right. So, like, there's weird stuff on there like baseball, but, you know, there's things. Come join us and hang out. Otherwise, comment, subscribe, like it, all the things. And this is Ballbuster signing off.
Got the Dragon Jared. Love you all.